Well, believe it or not, today, November 1st, is day 391, almost 400 days since Hamas attacked innocent Israeli civilians on October 7th, 2023. And because we're just days away from the US elections, the attention of most of the world is shifted away from the Middle East to the politics, and maybe I can also say some of the drama surrounding the politics of our elections here in the United States. All the world's attention is now on these two individuals to decide who will really be the leader of the free world, who will become the most powerful man or woman in the world for the next 4 years, as it were. But I want to just let you know, because you may not be seeing it in the news this week, what is in fact happening in Israel. Well, for one, I'm sorry to say that there's 97 hostages still remaining in Gaza. And I'll be more specific than that. 60 of those individuals are known to be alive, and it's estimated that 35 to 37 are corpses, are bodies of those who were either killed on October 7th or who were killed or who died at some point over the last 391 days, and their bodies remain in captivity in Gaza. We're believing and praying, and I want to ask you to pray with us that those 60 people would be brought back alive speedily and soon to Israel, and for the sake of the family's closure and dignity, and for the grief process that's necessary, that those 35 to 37 bodies of those who didn't make it would be repatriated into the main area of Israel speedily and soon. So that's something you can be praying for. It's difficult news, but I want to ask you, remember the hostages. I know it feels like old hat. Maybe our attention's been drawn into other things. And of course, there's more important, more either exciting or horrifying things happening in the world. But would you stand with us in prayer and ask the Lord to bring those 97 individuals back home to their families? Those who are alive, and those who have passed away, that the family might have closure on Israeli soil. In the last 24 hours, believe it or not, Hezbollah rockets and drones and missiles coming into the north of Israel have killed 7 civilians. And let me be more specific on that as well. 4 of those people, folks, were foreign workers. Not Israelis, not Jewish. Foreign workers coming to Israel just to make a living in the olive groves, in the vineyards in the north, and indiscriminate rocket fire from the terrorist organization, the jihadist Islamic holy war organization called Hezbollah, which means in Arabic, the people of Allah, fell on Israeli soil and killed 7 people, again, indiscriminately, 4 of whom weren't even Israeli. That's what's happening. Why can Israel not agree to a ceasefire with Hezbollah? Because their purpose for existence, as we've said so many times, and I feel I can't say it enough, you need to understand this. Hezbollah and Hamas's purposes for existence are the eradication of the state of Israel and the murdering of Jewish people, not only in the land of Israel, but in the region. And if they had the opportunity, wherever there's Jewish people in the world. You can't negotiate with terrorists, and you can't declare a ceasefire with people who say, given the opportunity, I will kill you. Think about that as you go to vote next week. We're not saying who to vote for or who not to vote for, but I want to ask you, remember the issues of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East as you cast your votes, local, national. Remember the issues of widespread and increasing anti-Semitism as you cast your votes next week. Remember the unrealistic nature of a 2-state solution, folks. It sounds very attractive, but you can't have Israel side by side with a nation who's run by a terrorist jihadist regime who says our purpose is to destroy our neighbors. You can't have it. A 2-state solution in the way that it's currently being proposed is untenable. Remember that as you go to vote. And remember that you have a calling as a follower of the Lord, as a follower of Jesus, the Jewish Messiah and the Savior of the world, to stand with the Jewish people, those who live in Israel, and the millions of Jewish people here in the United States and scattered throughout the nations of the world, in good times and in bad. You have a calling, an irrevocable calling, we'll say, to stand with Israel and the Jewish people when it's politically correct and when it's popular, and when it might ruffle some feathers and make some people angry. But that's a choice we're asking you to make as you go to the polls next Tuesday here in the United States and as you pray for the Lord's decision in these elections. So pray vote your conscience, and remember Israel and the Jewish people. And would you join us in continuing to pray for the protection of Israel, pray for wisdom and protection for the Israel Defense Forces as they continue to fend off terrorist regimes on multiple fronts. Pray for the shalom and the healing for Israelis, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of whom have experienced tremendous trauma and loss and continue to as the war in the region drags on. Pray that the Lord would confound the purposes of governments and terrorist regimes like Iran, who said, we will strike Israel again, as a retaliation for Israel destroying the missile and nuclear capabilities a week or so ago in Iran. The Iranian leadership said, we will strike Israel again. It's just a question of when. It's not a question of if. Would you pray that the Lord intervenes in these governments, in these national intentions to destroy and to harm Israel and the Jewish people, and that he brings those plans to nothing? So we're praying for protection. We're praying for the Lord's intervention. We're praying for an end to anti-Semitism in the places that it's flared up in the world. And we're praying that the Lord would raise up, not just here in the United States, but in Israel and in the nations of the world, leaders who would do righteous things in his sight. And one of those righteous things is standing with and advocating for and blessing Israel and the Jewish people. So thanks for your prayers. We'll keep you updated as we receive more information from our sources on the ground in Israel. The believers in Israel send their greetings and thanks to you. The 85 plus ministries that Jewish Voices partnered with on the ground want to thank you not only for your support financially, but even more so for your prayers for them. It's a long road. It's not ending anytime soon. It's become more complex, not more simple. And some can't even see the end, but the believers on the ground are remaining a light and sharing testimony to their neighbors. They're sharing the good news. They're meeting practical needs in Yeshua's name. And what they need right now is your prayers for strength, for encouragement, for the Lord's protection and defense of them and of the nation, and that he would use them to bring him glory. Remember, when the night is darkest, the light of the Lord shines brightest. And so as we're coming into November and December and a season when we remember that Jesus, Yeshua, whose name means salvation, is the light of the world, and that those who follow him will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. I want to ask you finally, as I close, to join us in praying that the Lord would make believers in the Messianic Jewish community in Israel and the Arab Christian community living in Israel a light to their neighbors around them, that many would be drawn to the Lord, the light of the world. Thanks for continuing to pray for Israel, pray for the U.S. elections, for the Lord's hand and intervention, and we'll keep you updated as we have more news from the ground in Israel.